And here we go. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this talk. Um, I know there was quite a lineup this morning with Paul's talk about performance and Jamie's talk, as well as Alessio. So really, thank you for investing 30 minutes with me. My talk today at the Tech Summit will be about reaching sustainable high performance. It's a people talk more than anything. And to give you a little bit of context, anyone who knows me, I'm not sure if we can like stop those little ding dings, but anyway, yeah. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm all about basketball. I think I've been playing basketball since I was a little kid, and I've been playing competitive basketball for at least 10 to 15 years. And there are a lot of commonalities in between the corporate world and the basketball world. And I think one thing that really marked me as a kid, I was about probably 15 years old, and prior to starting the season, the basketball season, there's always what we call preseason. It's usually 2 weeks at the end of August. And usually it's a moment where you meet your new teammates. It's a moment where you just practice on your fundamentals. So it's passing, shooting, dribbling, basic strategies, so that you're ready for the first games that start in September. But the trick with that coach, it was a new team. So I joined that team, and the coach, I remember we come in on the court, we all start taking the basketballs, we start playing and laughing together. And the coach goes like, "Oh, well, you guys, you can all put the basketballs back because you're not going to touch the basketball for the next 2 weeks." And I remember it really came as a shock as a 15-year-old Carl. I was like, "What do you mean? You know, we're here to play basketball." And for the next 2 weeks after that, it was all about running, track and field, push-ups, pull-ups. And his idea as a coach was that if you can't, a basketball game is 45 minutes, and if you can't withstand 45 minutes of high intensity running and shooting and all this kind of stuff and jumping, well, there's no way on top of that you can actually play basketball. So his idea was you have to prep the basics and then build on top of that. And that really struck me. And it's exactly, and then when you actually see a lot of similarities in between sport and the corporate world, because in the corporate world, the business is always striving to find and to ensure that their teams, that their co-workers perform at their higher standards sustainably. And as in a business, we have multiple challenges and we have to overcome, and we need that performance to be there. And it's the same in the sport world. But in the corporate world, I think the big difference is that in the corporate world, the answers on how to achieve sustainable performance of teams is mutual rewards. So that would be with rewards, with bonuses, any types of recognition, is having the right culture, is managing by objectives, which is interesting and works. But actually, that's only the tip of the iceberg. It's only focusing on the neck up. So what we call the cognitive capacity, which is the total information the brain can retain. But actually, and this is what I learned playing sports and with my anecdote playing basketball, is that to actually be able to deliver high performance is much more than that. You actually need to focus not only on your primary skills as a developer, like knowing knowing your language, the frameworks, the tooling, different methodologies, and all that kind of stuff. That's obviously what you need to do. That's your trade. Those are your primary skills. But it's also about focusing and developing your secondary skills, all the things that will allow you to have that sustained high performance. And in sports, we know that for years. It's the body, so it's the quantity of your energy, it's your emotions, it's the quality of your energy, the mind, so that's the mental energy, that's the focus that you have, and then the spirit, which is the purpose, the a deeper sense of purpose that's going to get you tick throughout your career. And a failure to tackle each and any of those emotions actually is just not going to work. If you're not healthy, you're never going to be able to perform. If you're depressed, but you're super healthy, you're still not going to be in your game, so on and so forth. And this is, as I said, there's nothing new with this. I think the first article that I know of talking about this is The Making of the Corporate Athlete by Dr. Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz. And actually, for those of you that have been at Trainline for a couple of years, if you remember about 3 years ago, there was what we call the Energy Project. And actually, this was founded by Tony Schwartz as well. And Tony Schwartz was, I think he's a psychologist initially. And he, in his career, he really focused on prepping athletes at the higher level. I think it was, he took care of the mental preparation of Monica Seles, the tennis player. And he then went on to write those articles, write that book, and create the Energy Project to actually apply those in the corporate world. So nothing new, and this talk is inspired of all this. And so the idea is so that you perform to your full potential in your job is to reach that ideal performance state that we're looking for in the sport world as athletes. So it's about focusing on your endurance, your strength, your flexibility, your self-control. And the key thing to get there is oscillation. So I think the key thing in sport is that actually stress is beneficial. This is how you build muscle. This is how you're going to go beyond your boundaries. Is how you're going to extend. Is how you grow, right? It's those crucial, that those 5 seconds of a game where you're down a point and you absolutely need to score. Those are those moments. This is where you need to be at your max, right? And to be at your max in those moments is just as important to recover and take breaks. And I think tennis players are absolutely great at this one, because the tennis player, they're basically alone against their opponent, but also against themselves. So as a tennis player, anyone who's played tennis, when you miss a point, it's just awful, right? You made that mistake, just put that ball in the net, you're super pissed at yourself. And now you have, to take a break, breathe, walk back behind the line, and find the mental energy to just do a clean slate and start over again. And obviously a tennis player, there's no timings, right? You could go straight to the line and go back to your next point, but that would be a mistake, because no one can actually keep that level of focus, that level of mental energy throughout an entire tennis game. You need your breaks. And so I think this is something that you're going to see throughout the entire presentation. That oscillation, recovery is just as important as stress. And stress is actually something positive. This is how you get better. But it's only positive if you have breaks to recover from the stressful period so that you can repeat and get better at it. The bad news, where the compare, well, the analogy with professional sports actually ends, is that compared to athletes, our dev careers are much longer. They have nothing compared to it. Like an athlete's average career is about 7 years. And in those several years, most of the time they practice, they rest, and they only compete, a few games a week, 2 hours, and then have months of season, right? Whereas us, we have almost no training time. We have to compete Monday to Friday, 7 to 8 hours a day. Our career is going to be 40 years, 45 years, and we only have 5 weeks of holidays per year, right? So completely different setup. We have to last much longer than athletes. So it's even more important that we are aware of all those things. And so the goal of this presentation really to me is to convey the message of the importance of being a corporate athlete. And this is how I get my energy, this is how I get my drive, and I wanted to share all this with you. And I think what I wanted to say as well is life is tough, right? We can't change external conditions. Life is going to throw a lot of stuff at us at the same time, not just work. And so the idea is that if you manage your energy well, and I'm not just talking about the physical one, like all the 4: body, emotions, mind, and spirit, if you got those 4, then we can actually train to manage our inner state better, and so that we're up for any challenge thrown at us. So the physical capacity, that's really the quantity of energy that you have. So this one is actually quite funny, because whenever I talk about it, like everybody goes, yeah, Carl, of course, right? Yet, whenever a stressful period comes in, this is the first thing that goes down the drain. If you're short on time in the morning, you got to take the kids to school, you're going to skip breakfast, go straight to work. But when you think about it, actually, it's like starting a Formula One Grand Prix with an empty tank. You you haven't had your breakfast, you're low on fuel, but that means that 4 hours later, midday, you're gonna be craving, you're gonna be low on energy. So eat, sleep, drink, those are the key ones. Like we've all pulled nighters. So yes, we can do them from time to time, but again, remember, we have to last for 40 plus years. So we can't compromise on that constantly. And from a physical perspective, so we talked about it a little bit with the Novak Djokovic example, how we build muscle. So you have, whoever exercise knows that to build muscle, you got to stress your muscle. You actually need to break some muscle fibers. This is when you get, all sored. It's because you broke some of your fibers. And then you have to recover to leave some time to your body to heal. It's not only will it heal, it's actually going to grow stronger. And the same with the mind, right? You can study hard, but you need those breaks to just digest all the new information that you've taken. So you got that oscillation principle as well on your physical capacity, which is linearity is the enemy. If you exercise 24/7, 7 days a week, you're just gonna hurt yourself. Which is then going to be the contrary, because then suddenly you're going to be forced to not exercise for a good while. So it's exactly the opposite. You won't be able to play, right? So that's the opposite of what you want. So linearity is the enemy. So recovery is just as important as the stressful periods where you're actually working and building muscle. Then it's great. You've got your energy. But if you're depressed and you're not in the right emotional space, you're not going to perform at your top level. And if you talk to athletes before a big competition or a big victory, and those journalists, they always ask us like, how did you feel before the race? Were you stressed and all that kind of stuff? And they always, and the language that you're going to hear is always going to say, well, I was feeling calm, I was happy, I was looking for it, I felt confident, focused. So that's the mind space where you want to be to then be at your full potential. And to the opposite, what you want to avoid is being frustrated, impatient, angry, scared, depressed. Those are the kind of feelings that's going to hinder your performance. Yet, we can't be happy all the time, right? So we need to find ways to get back to the right mental space to then perform our full potential. Music is a great example. And we all see those sport players before a big game with the headsets on, listening to the right music. It's same with us as devs, right? When I have a repetitive task and something like kind of boring with admin and stuff like that, I'm going to put electro music to get the right pace in, and I don't need to think too much. It's just about getting the pace, being in the zone. And then if I want something more creative, peaceful while coding, I might put some classical music or stuff like that. So using the right music at the right moment. So you can also bring up souvenirs, which gets you to the right emotional space as well. Again, tennis players, I think, are really good at this because they have, at one point, they really need to do that clean slate. They only have a few seconds to do so. Tennis players have rituals. So if you look at them, like Novak Djokovic, you would always put the same strings. His racket needs to be all perfect. They're going to make the ball bounce 3 times before they're actually going to start with a point. So that's the idea that you have, like finding those things that is going to allow you to just forget whatever happened right before that put you in a bad place, to go back to a mental space where you can actually perform again. And then the last one is spending time with your loved ones, right? There's nothing better than having a good dinner with friends, those good chats where you don't see the time go by. It is great recovering time from an emotional space, especially if you're in a stressful period. We tend to go, no, I got to go full in, I got to go work, I got to work more, but actually going back home, having a good dinner with some friends, again, can get you in the right mental space to perform better the next day in your job. So now that so we talked about the quantity of your energy and the quality of your energy. So that's great. So you're in the right emotional space, you're healthy and physically fit for the job. Now it's about mental capacity. And mental capacity is really the focus of your energy. It's about applying it, right? It's be in the moment, because we can't be focused constantly. we need to let go and relax. So again, it's the same thing. Linearity is the enemy here. You can't work nonstop with no breaks for 8 hours for 40 years of your life, right? It's impossible. So it's really the idea that it's our careers are not a marathon. It's really a series of sprints. Because if you tackle it as a marathon, you're just going to burn out. So you can't do that. So it's really about oscillating. And so how to do this? Lots of different ways. Meditation is one of them. It's claimed by, I mean, lots of studies to talk about the benefits of meditation. I personally suck at it. I find it really hard whenever I try. I sit there, I get all those minds and all those thoughts that come in, and then I usually end up getting up and doing something else. So that's super, super hard. But for people, well, so if you can do it, do it. That's the best. If like me, you suck at it, another great way to do this is mindless activities. Jogging, swimming, gardening, playing music, have a walk, read, have a laugh with a friend. It's great ways. And we've all been in those situations where we're trying to solve an issue as a developer, so we're on that vexing problem. We can't find the solution, but we're going to go on a break, chat with someone, and then suddenly or we'll be in the commute and we've got the solution. So that's the left brain, right brain shift at work, the fruit of mental oscillation. That's exactly what I mean. So again, it's that stress recovery, oscillation, which is key to what we're saying. Another tool that I want to talk about that I've learned with that person on the screen, this dude is Michael Phelps. So it's probably, I'd have to check that, but it's probably the athlete with the most gold medals ever. I think he has something like 28 or 30. This is as much as a country. And Michael Phelps, so he's a swimmer, he's an American swimmer. He was trained by a coach named Bowman. And Bowman has this visualization tool where you would ask Michael the day before a big race, he would ask Michael to actually visualize the perfect race in his bed, close his eyes before you go to bed, visualize your perfect race. So go on the podium, you listen to the bell, you dive in the water, how many strokes you're gonna do, what the stern is gonna be, so on and so forth. So Michael would visualize each and every one of his races always. And this actually came really handy during the Beijing Olympic Games because he went on the podium, put his goggles on, jumped in the water, and something went wrong. I don't remember if it was just foggy or if it was water in his goggles, but anyway, what happened that he was blind at that moment. So he couldn't see what was happening, so he had to close his eyes and actually did the entire race with his eyes closed. And what he did was he played the tape. That was his coach's expression, play the tape. So he would play the visualization that he had. So he counted the strokes. I got to turn here, counted the strokes again, 12, 11, 10, up the way to he was at the end of the pool, touched it, got out of the water, and actually realized that not only did he won the race, but he actually broke a world record with his eyes closed. So that's how crazy and powerful that thing is. So this we can apply as well in our jobs. When we wake up in the morning or the day before, just look at our calendar, say, oh, this is how my day is going to play out. Let's think about that grooming session I have to do, that meeting I've got to conduct, that retro, how I'm going to convey the message, what's going to come up. And so when you're actually be in that meeting, that grooming session, conducting it, well, actually, that's going to be the second time that you're doing it. So you're going to be prepared. You will have mentally visualized how the meeting was going to happen and go, which will make you much more ready to face whatever's going to come up your way. And then, so the last energy, so we talked about the mental capacity, that's focus. We talked about the physical one, which is the quantity of your energy, and the emotional one, which is the quality. I think the real super important one is the spiritual capacity. What I mean by that is not religion and stuff like that, although it could be for some, but it really is something of a deeper purpose, of something bigger than you, that's gonna help you get out of the bed every day, right? That's that idea really. So that could be, the meaning of life, which is not something that you find, it's something that you build. It's your values, actions that need to be aligned with your values in your life to make sure that you just feel good and well and happy and you can get out of bed every day. So a good example of that, I think, is I've got a friend, and I think we all know, we all have such a friend in our surroundings. So my friend Claire started smoking in her teenage years, middle school, and she repeatedly tried to quit smoking, right? And she's a very smart person. I mean, everybody knows that smoking is bad for his health, yet it's super hard to do. So she tried to quit smoking multiple times and never really had any success more than a month or a few months. And then she got pregnant with her first kid. And she suddenly was able to quit smoking for at least a year. And then after the pregnancy, probably 6 months later after that, she started smoking again. Then she got pregnant with a second kid. So she stopped smoking again, because there's this sense of deeper purpose, because it's your child's health that you want to protect, right? So again, stop smoking for like 2 years, and then takes over again. So that's exactly what I mean with that spiritual capacity, is finding those deeper meanings that go beyond yourself, so that you find the energy, the lasting energy, to do things that normally you don't have the will to do so. And this has nothing to do with cognitive capacities that we're talking about, and what in the corporate world is mostly focusing on. Because she's smart, she knows all those things. She just needs an extra motivation that's of a higher purpose to get her the drive to quit and to not touch a cigarette. And so I think we all have those kind of things. So we need, and to be able to do that and to find those, is we need to take a step back, pause and look inside, right? In my case, what my drive and what's getting me out of bed every day, and I think is our biggest challenge in the 21st century for us, mankind, is climate change. And if you look at the biggest industries that actually contribute to the carbon production, contributing to that climate change, is actually number one is the energy industry, number two is industries, and then number three is the transport industry. And in the transport industry, everybody talks about flights and air travel, but actually that only accounts for 25% of the carbon footprint of the transport industry, and 75% of this is actually cars. And half of those cars are people alone in a car in a city. And this is exactly what we're trying to solve at Trainline, is by making taking trains in a much more efficient, smoother, easier way. As if we can make it as easy as just grabbing your keys and going in your car and taking your car to go to work and being stuck in a traffic jam, if we can provide that experience that's better and smoother than that, we're going to help, and we're going to put a brick in that wall that's going to help solve the climate change. I know it's small, but this is the drive. This is what gets me out of bed every day, because there's a higher purpose to what I'm doing than just coding and managing. I'm just putting my skills at the service of a higher purpose. But yet you need to find a balance, right? Because there's always more work. And as we said, it's not a marathon. So you need to have some breaks. You need to have to spend time with your loved ones. You need to have a clear boundaries in between work and other things. And I think another clear drive in my life is also my kids. One moment that I absolutely love is reading bedtime stories to my kids every night. So in that picture, I'm actually in my daughter's bed. So we gather up around a story. And every evening around 7:30, I just go there, read the story, and absolutely love it. So whatever work I have to do, whatever the priorities are, I'm always going to pause, stop, go back home, read that bedtime story, and spend that moment with my kids. And if I need to after, I'll work again. But it's about finding what matters to you and finding your drive, so that you get up out of bed and you feel good. You're in your ideal performance state, and the spiritual part of it is just as important as the physical part of it. So that's basically it for my talk. The key points that I really want you to keep in mind and get away from this talk is really just don't just focus on your primary skills. yes, of course, being a great developer is super important. So we need to work on our craft, but it's just as important to take care of you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And by doing so, this is how you're going to reach your ideal performance state, so that when your boss is going to come to you with yet another thing to do, or just life's going to throw another thing at you, it's going to be hard. Well, it's not going to be, oh no, yet another thing, but to the opposite, you're going to have the energy to just go and tackle it and say, yeah, no worries, I can do this, right? And the key thing to get to that state is so working on your body, physical energy, quantity of your energy, emotions. So it's the quality of your energy, mind, the focus, and spirit, which is the what's going to get you out of bed every day on the long term. And the key thing in there, I think, really is linearity. You working and stressing your muscles is just as important as the recovery times. And if you manage to do all this, this is how you're going to become a corporate athlete and be able to overcome whatever life is throwing at you. And that's it for my talk. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All.
I love the example of the cigarette one. I'm behind my husband that when he will stop smoking, but as of now, no luck.
It's really hard, huh?
Yeah, that's true. That's correct.
I'm going to stop the recording.